I always click the wrong one, chat. How's everybody doing today? Ayo, Dr. K messaged me. Did I? Sweet. Did you respond? Person that I messaged? I was messaged by the doc. Cool. What did I say? No? How's everybody doing today? What up? Welcome to another Healthy Gamer GG stream. We were being scammed? Okay. News to me. My name is Dr. Alok Kanoja. I'm a psychiatrist practicing in Boston. Just a reminder that everything we discuss today on stream is intended to be for educational purposes only. Nothing is intended to be taken as medical advice. So if you guys have a question or concern, please go see a licensed professional. Okay. So how's everybody doing today? Did y'all have a good weekend? Have a happy Halloween? Did we go trick-or-treating, chat? First time chat from viewer. Tina and Gina. I'm drunk. Okay. Well, I don't know what time it is where you are, but here it's a little bit early to be drunk. But no Halloween where you are. That's a little sad. Halloween is a very fun holiday. We get dressed up. There's the distribution of high fructose corn syrup in many different forms. Yeah. I did take my kids trick-or-treating. It was lots of fun. I kind of like it because they don't really have the stamina to do it for hours and hours and hours. So we like trick-or-treat pretty hard for like an hour and a half. And then they're kind of like, yeah, we're ready to go home. We're hungry now. And so it works out perfect. I went trick-or-treating with my kids. Yeah, that's what I did. It's 10 a.m. and I'm tipsy. Oh my goodness. Maybe go see a professional about that. If you're tipsy at 10 in the morning, you might have a problem. What COP plus parents post? Yeah, what a great question. So, a couple of announcements before we jump in. So we're going to be doing more Reddit reviews today, and we've got some cool stuff for y'all. A couple of things. So we're going to be launching our parent coaching program, or relaunching. We've done it before, and we've sort of improved it. It's gotten better. We've learned a lot from our 2 pilots, basically. I don't know if y'all know this, but at the very beginning of Healthy Gamer, like our first clients were actually parents. Like they were the people that we helped at the beginning because it was all about video game addiction. And then we quickly sort of shifted our focus to gamers because that's who I really care about. But we still get lots and lots of messages from parents. They're like, hey, Dr. K, will you cure my son's video game addiction? And it's usually sons, rarely daughters, but usually sons. And then I will say, no, but I will cure you of the way that you parent them. So we are working with parents now. So we're going to launch our program on November 11th. So if you guys know any parents that could be interested, you can sign up there. So we're also going to be focusing a little bit on parent-related content. So we're going to be talking a lot about like the interactions between parents and kids. So I think we've sort of done that somewhat before, but we're going to take sort of a parent focus. Usually, our parent-child relationship questions are from the child's perspective. So we're going to try to look a little bit from the parent's perspective. Okay. So there's also going to be, our community manager, Tech Teller, who I believe is in chat, will host a podcast in our Discord with a coaching client and a coach at 5 p.m. Central Time on Tuesday, November 2nd, tomorrow. So if you're interested in learning what a client's journey looks like or how coaching effectively helps people, hop into the podcast. So there's a podcast happening on our Discord tomorrow at 5 p.m. Central Time, Central US time. So if you guys are curious, I guess there'll be a coaching client and a coach. So yeah, so just so y'all know, we try to, I don't know if you guys caught stream on Friday, but one of the things that I talked about was the different stages of change model and thinking about different people in our community. And so I think one of the things that we really try to focus on is understanding what are the different stages that people are at in terms of wanting to put their life together and trying to give, some kind of solution for people at each stage. So if you're kind of like if you're not really sure what you need to change about your life, you're not really sure that you need to change, you're not really sure that you want to change, but maybe there's something you could learn. Like we have sort of some stuff for that, right? So that's our slightly meme heavy content, more entertaining content. Maybe that'll get you thinking a little bit. And then once you're seriously thinking about stuff, you may want to change, but then there's a large part of you that doesn't want to change, right? There's a part of me that wants to get into shape, but then there's a part of me that like wants to play video games instead. So navigating that conflict involves a different set of solutions. So I think that's really where a coaching program comes in, for example. So to help you work through your internal barriers and internal ambivalence. And then, there's like the actual like planning phase, which is like when you're ready to actually make a change. Things like Dr. K's guide or coaching can be appropriate there. Going to see a therapist, for example, even things that are not related to Healthy Gamer, just things that you need to do, whether that's getting a gym membership, ordering exercise equipment, going for a run, seeing a therapist, going to see a medical doctor to get your annual physical. And then, so we try to like support people at each step of the journey. And so our Discord is like actually a good place for people to kind of walk that journey, kind of figure out where you are. There are a lot of pre-contemplative people on the Discord. So, check that stuff out if y'all are interested in sort of taking kind of the next step or like understanding things a little bit more in depth. Yeah. So let's hop into watching advertisement. Sure. Let's hop into Reddit posts. Okay. So I've heard good annual what? Have you seen Meta? I've heard of Meta. Facebook thing, right? We're talking about Facebook rebranding, right? Yeah, I don't know, man. Is there really it's just a Flakes. Welcome, buddy. I'm happy you were able to catch us live as well. Oftentimes live is more scuffed than post live. Yeah, we'll see, man. I don't know, dude. I don't know what's going on with Facebook and Meta. So like here's what I think. So let me just think for a second. So the first thing I want to say is like, I don't know too much of the details of what Facebook is doing or what they're planning on doing. But I think that, we saw positioning for this when Facebook acquired Oculus, right? So I think that there's like definitely a opportunity for like augmented reality or VR stuff related to other parts of our life. So I think if we look at Meta, like the main thing to understand is that our digital lives and our personal, our IRL and the digital L, IDL and IRL in digital life and in real life, like these areas are getting more blended, right? So the barrier between our online selves and our real life self is like smaller than it's ever been. And I think a good example of this is like the way that we post our lives online, right? So like what we're doing is we're living this life over here, and then we kind of post it online. And then sometimes the online version of the self becomes the primary self. So you'll have people that are like photoshopping bunches of pictures and things like that. And then like their sense of identity derives from like their online presence as opposed to like the person that they actually are. So this trend is happening. A lot of people will say that this trend is bad. I personally think there are some parts of it that are toxic, but let's not forget that, there are aspects to this that we take for granted that are like absolutely beneficial. So for example, like, as people are posting pictures of the food that they eat and stuff like that, it's actually like a really cool opportunity to find good restaurants and find good food and things like that, right? So like the social aspect of websites like Yelp or Google reviews or things like that, like part of what I love about going to a new city is that I can find like hole in the wall taco places like halfway, across the country. And so I really like that. I think there are a lot of benefits to social media. It allows us to stay in touch. It allows us to see what else is going on. We can be such efficient consumers of what's going on in people's lives. So I think that there are some problems with it, but there are also like some benefits to it, and that's kind of our approach at Healthy Gamer, is that things are not, for the most part, good or evil. It's really about how we use it and using it in a restrained kind of manner. So in terms of like what's going on with metaverse, like I think it's theoretically integrating more of like our digital self into our, IRL self. I think it's going to come with a lot of problems because I see a lot of like mental illness manifest through the relationship between real self and digital self. So FOMO is a good example. And on a deeper sense, I think one of the biggest problems with social media is that it selects for the extremes. So there's like this cosmic middle child syndrome going on where like everything that's temperate gets squeezed out, right? So if you look at, what gets posted on your feeds, it's the things that get upvoted the most. The things that get upvoted the most or liked the most or whatever your metric is are things that are more likely to be extreme. And so then what happens is like we paint this picture of the world where like if you log on to like, let's say, I personally use Reddit, but like if you log on to your favorite social media website, all you're going to see is like the extremes of stuff. And it gives you this idea that like the world is falling apart because it's all these like, Karens that are attacking people in retail stores and like protests going on where people are being shot and like, other like crazy, like there's a volcano where something fell apart. And then there's some kid who's like jumping around on top of skyscrapers. And so like as a human being, when you wake up, like the sensory input that you get makes you feel like the world is like going to hell, right? And then we see all these posts about like climate change and depression and things like that. So it's like everything is just like getting catastrophically worse. And so the human brain is not designed to deal with that degree of negative input. So let me give you guys just an example. So like if we think about how the human brain evolved, like what was the society in which the human brain evolved? What kind of news did the human brain evolve with, right? So like I have a tribe of like my 150 noobs in ancient India, right? And then there's a tribe like down there, which is like 2 miles away, and we like interact with them once or twice a week. And so the scale of like good news and bad news, it's like, oh, someone passed away. Like that happens once every like 9 months. Good news is like someone had a baby. Like, great, there's a new baby in town. Someone got married. That too is like every like 6 months to a year. So our brain is not designed to get extreme amounts of news on not even a daily basis, let alone minute to minute basis, extreme news after extreme news after extreme news. And so when we kind of think about like where this existential depression comes from, the more that we get bombarded with like extreme good and extreme bad, because it goes both ways, and we'll talk about the good in a second, the more our mind is like getting overwhelmed by this stuff, right? So sensory input becomes more and more important. And if we don't control what gets put into our senses, we have an entire digital generation of people who are like burnt out and like not interested in living anymore. Like depression is at an all-time high. Anxiety is at an all-time high. Suicide for the most part has been really stable, but is actually climbing a little bit. And we kind of wonder like what's going on with society. And then we have like these different diagnoses from different people, right? So the boomers will say like, oh, the young kids are lazy. Like they'll say that, oh, like kids nowadays, like video games are the problem and like kids are lazy. We see this when we kind of talk about like a labor shortage, right? People are saying that there's a shortage of labor because people can't find employees to work jobs. And I think there's sort of it's a more complicated equation, right? Because you can find employees, it just depends on what you're willing to pay to get them. So remember that if you have a labor shortage, there's like, what is the compensation you're offering for like the kind of labor? Because I think there's been a recalibration there that has been like an extreme recalibration. So, and everyone's kind of looking at the world and they're saying like, oh my God, like everything's going to hell. Like, what should I do about it? Meanwhile, we have the psychiatric profession, which is diagnosing people with depression left and right, which is, I think, a step in the right direction in a sense. But I think when there's a epidemiologic problem of this proportion, when you're talking about, depression being 300% worse over the last year than it was over the last like decade, I don't think that there's something in the food or water, right? Like, what is the public health change? What is the epidemiologic change that's leading to this depression? I don't think that suddenly there's a neurochemistry imbalance that's 300% worse because there's more DoorDash and Uber Eats delivering food. Like, I don't think it's that simple. So when there's like a rise in depression, like what's going on in the world? What's going on existentially? How are our minds being bombarded by this information? So we get bombarded with negative information, then we think the world is going to hell and it makes us depressed. And then it's no surprise that like taking an SSRI is insufficient to fix that problem, right? It's about finding your way in the world, which like is no longer simple. And the world is like a dangerous place. On the flip side of it, we also have stuff that's like elevated in our content based on like entertainment value, right? So like the most extreme positives get populated as well. It's like extreme cases of people saving lives and like this happening and that happening. And it's epic. Like that's the thing about the internet, right? It's always epic. And so epic good and epic bad. And then there you are, and you're not epic, right? Like none of us is like epic all the time. So you're like mediocre and I'm mediocre. And then you look at the world and you see epic bad stuff and epic good stuff. And you're like, where do I'm not fit like this person is. Like, I don't drive this kind of car. I wish I had the ability to tape this thing and catch these moments on social media so I could get lots of internet karma. And so like you're missing out on the good stuff and like the world is going to hell and you're kind of caught in between and you're like not sure what to do with yourself. All you know is that the life out there is way more engaging than yours is. Yours is drab, right? You're not like in the middle of all these protests where like epic things are happening and history is being made and stuff like that. And then you want to do something, right? Because even the people who are getting like, gassed by the protesters that are getting gassed by like riot police, those people are doing something with their lives, right? Even if it's like terrible and it's like they're doing something, they're standing for something, they believe in something. And we're just meh, right? What are we doing? We're sitting here watching Twitch. And so I think this is what's happened with like the online content aggregation algorithm, right? Is it populates like the more extreme stuff. So what's going to happen with Meta? I suspect more of the same, except it'll be more intense, right? It's going to be like more dopaminergic. So like you're going to be able to vicariously experience in more sensory organs what a protest looks and feels like, right? It's going to be wild. And then it's kind of like, so I think it's going to be more engaging and we're going to see like worsening mental health. It's going to be more, on the flip side, it'll also be like more inspiring. So like, let's remember that for all the evils of social media, they do allow people to organize, right? For better or for worse. So we're going to see more of that. And I think we're just going to see more extremes of what we're seeing now. So what VR really does is amp up our interaction with the online world, blur the boundaries between the real world and the online world. So I think that's what we'll see. So I think is whether it's bad or good entirely depends on our ability to regulate and practice some degree of restraint in terms of like what's coming. I think it could be great. Like it'd be cool to be able to play like virtual D&D. Like that'd be awesome. I've tried a little bit to play D&D online and it's just not the same as doing it in person. Like it'd be pretty cool if you could have imagine how cool it'd be to have like an interactive like D&D kind of session, right? Where you can like see things and you can lob fireballs and things like that. It's pretty neat. There's a lot of exciting stuff there. I think it'd be neat to, especially during, places like situations like the pandemic, like if we had a more robust VR system where we could interact with people, like that'd be cool. I think there's a lot of cool stuff there, and I think there's a lot of damaging stuff there. I think it's just all about understanding and kind of behaving responsibly, ideally as a company or definitely as a consumer. You have to be aware of social media hygiene. And if we're not careful, we're going to see worse, like things are going to get worse. Like depression is going to get worse. Anxiety is going to get worse. FOMO is going to get worse. Instagram reality is going to get worse, where people like pretend to be something online. Like online dating is going to be potentially way worse, potentially way better, right? Because you can sort of virtually interact with people now, potentially. But then, their avatar may not relate who they look like in real life. So we'll see. Okay. That's what I think about Meta, I suppose. We'll see. Because the other thing that I want to say is I think people, at least I'm not very good at making predictions, and I don't know that many people are. Yeah, so, virtual reality and pornography, like that seriously could be the end of the human race, like not gonna lie. So I don't know if you guys know this, but there's a technology called haptic feedback. And this technology was actually developed about 20 years ago. So this technology, there's some really interesting technology that was developed for medical purposes. So I don't know if y'all know this, but many of the American medical institutions opened up branches in other parts of the world because American medicine is supposed to be advanced and all that good stuff. So you had all these places like the Cleveland Clinic and Harvard and places like that will like open up external branches in foreign countries. And part of what, as they were sort of developing kind of the technology for remote work, they developed a glove. And the glove has this haptic feedback where there's like one source glove at the site, and then like a physician is wearing like a comparable glove. So what one person does is wears a glove, and then what they'll do is like palpate something. So palpate means to touch. So as doctors, like, will touch things to see like what's broken. So if like your shoulder is like dislocated, like I'm feeling around to see like, okay, where's the head of the shoulder? Okay, are the nerves intact? Like, where bones are okay. Okay, scapula is okay. So you can kind of do a physical exam to see if things are intact. And the cool thing is they developed this glove where one person is like, feeling around, and then there's another glove, an ocean away that feels the same resistance of the source glove. So you can kind of feel what the other person is touching by wearing a matching set of gloves. So at some point, VR and haptic feedback is going to invest in that technology, and we're going to have a physically sensory experience in VR. That's going to be, you're going to feel things in your body, right? Someone's going to develop the technology at some point. And if we're not careful, like that'll be the end of the human race because people won't procreate anymore. And like we're just 1 or 2 steps away from that technology. So be careful, chat. Be careful. So isn't VR sex a good thing for society as a whole? Like, wouldn't it lower the number of incels and stuff? I'd actually think the exact opposite. I think as VR sex becomes a thing, I think it's going to make it harder for people to engage in healthy relationships. Right? So if we look at like the progression of pornography, the progression of pornography has not made it, so you could make the argument that like the increased prevalence of pornography will educate people and make them, more comfortable and better at having sex. But I think we see the opposite effect. Right? I don't know, man. Like, yeah, I don't know. So when people say, well, VR increase social anxiety, so that too, we don't really know. But here's what I'd say. So VR will allow a certain amount of social connection with a reduced anxiety, but will serve as a crutch for like real life anxiety, is what I suspect. So we see this already on Discord, where it's like easy to make friends on Discord, but like making friends on Discord doesn't necessarily make it easier for you to make friends in real life. Like sometimes it can help, but sometimes it can also like serve the opposite purpose, where your brain gets so used to the comfort of Discord and it doesn't know how to do things like, so our social sonar gets messed up when we have online relationships. I don't know if you guys, I think there's a video about this somewhere on our YouTube, but here's kind of a quick rundown. So our brain has, okay, let's take a step back. So a lot of people who are like interested in making friends in real life and like interacting with people in real life won't have any trouble interacting on Discord or like online communities. So I have like my online friends, but it's really hard for me to make real life friends. Like, what's up with that? Why can I feel so comfortable in an online setting, but feel so uncomfortable in a real life setting? So this is like, I'd sum it up by something that I called social sonar, which is not a real thing. It's like an amalgamation of different like parts of our brain. So generally speaking, when we socialize with other people, we have these empathic circuits of our brain. So these are things that will interpret all kinds of social information subconsciously and then like give you a conclusion, right? So these people are into me or these people dislike me. It'll give you like this raw conclusion. But the truth is that your brain is like processing tons of information. It's processing things like tone. It's processing things like eye contact. It's processing things like body language. It's processing things like when you speak, do other people stop talking or do they talk over you? Like there are all kinds of like little bits of information, facial expressions that your brain processes in terms of telling you, hey, people here like you or people here don't like you. So these circuits get really well developed if we socialize with other people. And generally speaking, like, you know, the average person doesn't have social anxiety because these circuits are well developed. When we start to interact with people online, some of that stuff goes dormant. Okay. So like our brain rusts. So, you know, the interesting thing about the brain is if you don't use something, you start to like lose that function. You can get it back. It's not that big of a deal, but it starts to rust. So a good example of this is languages. So if you practice a second language every single day, you can speak it fluently. But if you don't practice it for a while, like your brain is like, oh, we don't need Spanish anymore, or we don't need English anymore. So let's just forget it. Let's make space for things that we do need. So when you interact with people on Discord, you may get some degree of tone, but you don't really get any eye contact. You know, if you're interacting with people over text messages or DMs, like there's no eye contact, there's no tone, there's no like, are people into me? Like you don't get any of that stuff. And so then those parts of our brain shut off. When they shut off, then we go into a real social situation. And the parts of our brain that normally would reassure us and tell us that, hey, these people really like you. They invite you to a party, you show up. But all these like circuits in our brain that interpret body language and facial expressions and eye contact and all these kinds of things, those are off. So those are all subconscious processing things that usually reassure us and reduce our anxiety. In the absence of all of that information, we're kind of flying blind there in those social situations. Our mind tries to make up the difference with logical calculation. And that's what anxiety is, right? It's thinking. It tries to deal with the subconscious absence of information with overly conscious thinking. So then we think and think and think and think and think and think and think. And the truth is that that doesn't really reassure us very much. It just hyperactivates our anxiety and then like tends to make things worse. And so then what happens is a lot of people will like resort to substances to reduce that level of thinking and then be able to be comfortable with people. And that's kind of the cycle of what's happening with online interaction. So we interact with people online. Our social sonar gets kind of blunted. Then when we go interact with people in the real world, like the empathic circuits of our brain are like kind of they're off. And then we don't really know how to feel about things. It's really hard for us to be reassured. We replace it with like over anxious thinking, right? Or anxious thinking, like overthinking. It doesn't really reassure us. Then we're like, oh my God, I have social anxiety. And then some people discover this solution, which is substances. And they're like, oh man, that makes things so much better. So I know it's kind of weird, but like the solution there tends to be quite simple. It's just go and hang out with other people. Even if you don't like it, you can just interact with people socially, like in brief periods of time. You know, the next time you're at the grocery store and checking out, just say hello to your cashier. You can start with something as simple as that. Nod to someone as they walk down the street. You know, if there's like a dog that's playing in a park and you like dogs, like ask if you can pet the dog and just like interact with humans. And the cool thing is, much like a foreign language, like you guys don't have to worry about fixing it. You don't have to try to fix it. All you need to do is expose your brain to the right kinds of like stimulation, and then your social sonar will like reactivate. And if you do it long enough, like you'll remember a language, right? If you used to speak Spanish and you forget it and I drop you off in like Spain, after like a couple weeks, like you'll learn it again. It'll happen automatically. That's the cool thing about the brain. You actually don't have to do a whole lot. You just have to put yourself in the right situation. And all the while, just remember that this is going to be deeply uncomfortable for me. And the more that you kind of do it, like the more comfortable it'll become. Anyway, that was kind of random. Questions? Thoughts? Yeah, so patients Dota is saying your solutions are making me uncomfortable. So like, here's the thing about HG, right? And like what our goal is. Our goal is not to make you comfortable. It's to help you get healthy. And sometimes discomfort is a part of that. So like the avoidance of discomfort is probably the biggest, when you're generating your character and you get to pick traits. And you know how some traits give you bonus points that you can reallocate elsewhere? And other traits you have to spend points for, right? Like, so you can get like flaws and you can get positive traits. The inability to tolerate discomfort gives you the most bonus points to allocate elsewhere. It's actually the hardest thing. And the ability to tolerate discomfort is like the most OP trait you can have. It's tough. Invested in the long skill tree, yeah, man. It's rough. No more porn stars on streams? What does that have to do with anything? I'm confused. Yeah, so the cool thing is that the neat thing about life is that you may not be able to respec, but there isn't a limited number of points. So the cool thing about life is it's like one of these games where you like there's no diminishing returns on levels. Like you can just keep gaining levels your entire life. It's like 1,000 XP to get from level 1 to level 2, 1,000 XP to get to level 2 to level 3. Like that's literally how your brain works. Like you can spend a year, learning piano, and then like you can spend a year learning guitar, and then you could spend a year learning the oboe. Like you can just learn as much as you want to. Like it's just about, whether you do your dailies. Like there's no cap. There's no cap on like level. There's no level limits on life. There's no like talent points like cap on life. It's just about how you spend your dailies. It's just if you're AFK for a day and you don't do your 15 dailies, then like you can never get those back. But there's no cap. Right? That's like literally like, that's why I spent 7 years becoming a monk, and then like I just went to medical school and then became a psychiatrist, and then like quit that job 2 or 3 years ago, and now I'm a streamer. Like what the hell? You can just do that, chat. You can just go and do something. It's just about how you spend your days. There's no like artificial cap. There's no level cap. Like you can just get better at everything. For the people who say just do that, I'm not saying just do that. I'm saying you need to understand that like it's not about respecking. You don't need to respec. There's plenty of talent points available. And this is the problem, right? Is when we think that, I need to respec because I have wasted time. Like, you may have wasted time, but it's kind of irrelevant because it's not like you need that time. That's the biggest problem, right? The idea behind respecking is people are like, I wasted time. That's only an issue if time was a limited resource. But whether you started, 4 years ago or today, like the work is still the same. You can still move forward. You can still level up. Like, I don't know if that makes sense. And for people who are saying time is a limited resource, like that's kind of interesting. I know we talk about it that way, and I know according to the laws of physics and biology, it's that way, but I encourage y'all not to think about it that way. In a sense, it's limited, and in a sense, it's unlimited. Because it's like, you're going to have lots of time today, you're going to have lots of time tomorrow. You're going to have the same amount of time, whether you wasted it or didn't waste it. And a lot of times people get so caught up in the time that's been wasted that, they can't use the time that's useful, like in a useful way. So just forget about the time you've wasted. Forget about time being a limited resource. What I'd say is that so maybe think about it in this kind of limited resource, which is that you've got 24 hours in a day. So it's just about using today well, right? Don't worry about all the time that's been passed, and don't worry about all the time that will come. It's like, what are you going to do today? That's the main question. Spastic. So this is important. So this person is saying, Kaninoki is saying, I'm going to do spastic catching up. See, that's the problem, is that the idea of catching up only exists with time that's been wasted. So what makes it spastic is that you have to catch up. And now what you're doing is like you're burdening yourself with the idea of making up for lost time. The more that you burden your mind with making up for lost time, the worse your performance becomes and the harder a flow state becomes. And then you don't end up doing a good job anyway. If you just did the work without worrying about catching up, you'd actually do a better job at it. So let go of catching up. That's a huge, important part. Right? You don't have to catch up. You just have to do the work. And the more simple you make the work, the more present you make the work, the less you get burdened in your head by, oh my God, all the stuff I have to do. It actually negatively impacts your performance. So let that go. It's hard. I'm not saying it's easy. It's just, there's a whole video about that. This is the whole falling behind thing in Dr. K's guide. There's a very common samskara, or like psychological like complex that holds people back, where they feel like they've fallen behind. Yeah, so there's a lot more details in the guide about how to deal with that. In my experience, grieving the lost time helped. Can you recommend it? Yeah, so I think grieving is a very healthy thing and is something that probably we should like teach people how to grieve and mourn. So grieving and mourning is like the process of letting go of like the past, right? Like that part is over and it helps people like look forward. How to let go. Let me think about it. So if you guys want a meditation practice for letting go, I think, is it called a mandala? So I think like the making and destroying of mandalas is a good example of like something that can entrain letting go. So a mandala is like a diagram that oftentimes you'll make with like colored rice. So I think something like the Zen gardens are also like good examples of this, where essentially what you do is like you make some kind of like piece of artwork, right? Like with grains of rice that are colored. And then like you'll make like an elaborate drawing and then you destroy it. Like once you're done with it, you just destroy it. And then like you do it over and over and over again, right? So it's like the process of like building something and then like letting it go. And so people say like, that's cruel. Well, interesting, right? So what's cruel about that? Yeah, so you can do it with Legos too, right? So build something magnificent with Legos and then destroy it. That's something we do a lot, right? And so it's kind of interesting because like we think about beauty as something to hold on to, and life is all about the accumulation of stuff, right? Our effort has to be like put into something. And then we want to hold on to it. So in the case of a mandala, like make a pattern and then let go. In the case of Legos, like make something magnificent. Don't take a picture of it. Don't hold on to it in any way, shape, or form. And let it go. Yeah, it is hard. You're correct. Remember that the goal of meditation is sometimes to give us an opportunity to practice things for the other parts of our life. So people who are good at making mandalas are better at surviving breakups, right? People who understand that life is impermanent in and of itself, like that the nature of life is impermanence, and that a lot of our suffering comes from a desire of permanence. I don't want this moment to end. I don't want this to end. I don't want this to end. And in that process, we sort of actually lose out on so much goodness, because it's going to end when it's going to end. You can try to do everything you want to, but at the end of the day, it is not ours to control. It is just ours to experience and hopefully enjoy. Yeah, so someone else is saying beautiful, right? So like beat XCOM on Iron Man and delete the save. Like playing Iron Man is a good example of, so when you play an Iron Man game, that's like, embracing life. It's like there is no backup, there is no security. And it can actually make it more fun. That's what like the yogis kind of discovered. Or actually, I don't know, the yogis, they're more Tibetan monks or Chinese monks, Buddhist monks. I'm not quite sure where they were geographically. But they sort of discovered that like embracing the idea that life is impermanent is part of what makes it enjoyable and like easier to live. Right? I'm serious. And gamers have figured that out. That's like Iron Man is not for most gamers. But for the ones that are able to embrace it, it's like so much better than playing a regular game. Right? It helps you feel alive to play on Iron Man mode. And the whole point about Iron Man mode is that things are impermanent. And so people wonder, like, when I let go of permanence in life, when I embrace like the meditative lifespan where I can't count on anything and like I don't, like, how do you embrace a life of impermanence? Doesn't that make it terrifying? No, it makes it liberating. Because at any moment, things could end. And so you live life more fully. Speaking of time, right? Wasting time. The reason we waste so much damn time is because we think of time as an unlimited resource. You'll always have more hours tomorrow. Right? I can do it tomorrow. I can do it tomorrow. I can do it next week. I can do it next month. The truth is that we think of time as unlimited. We treat time as unlimited. Right? That's practically how we do it. If we really treated time as limited and precious, we wouldn't live the way that we live. And so earlier I was saying, it's tricky. I mean, time is what it is. You can think about it whichever way you want to. The important thing is, which way do you think about it and which way do you need to change your thinking in order to like live a better life? So when you say I can do it tomorrow, like what is your understanding of like how much time there is? Because when we think about, when we look forward, we don't think at all about how limited time is. We only think about time as limited when we look behind us. Right? Oh my God, I wasted so much time. There was such a finite amount of time that has gone past. But when I look to the future, it's like, oh man, there's so much time. I don't have to do it today. I can do it tomorrow or the next day or the next day or the next day or the next month or the next year. I'll get my life together when I'm 26. I don't have to do it when I'm 25. So think about it. Take a look at yourself. Think about what you want to do with your life. Think about how much time do you really have? What do you want to do today? That's the question. So, Pelzies, why does 26 seem like such a pivotal moment in life? I don't know, but it sure does. Right? Maybe what makes it feel like the pivotal moment is it's where you are. That's what makes it pivotal. So here's the thing. When can you pivot, chat? There's only one point in time that you can pivot. Do you know when that is? Nope, not anytime. Now. The only time you can pivot is now. You can't pivot yesterday. You can't pivot tomorrow. This is the other big thing, which I think a lot of people don't realize. When is the only time that you can take action? Action can only be taken at one point in time. Right? So I know y'all are trolling with the tomorrow. This is the big thing. So like when people say live in the present, this Eastern philosophy. Living in the present is not like, oh my God, like I'm going to live in the present, which means I'm going to put my penis wherever I feel like. That's what it means to live in the present. I'm going to embrace my desires. And I'm not going to like pay rent. Oh my God. Can I borrow $20? Please. Oh my God, you're so greedy. You're not like borrowing money. Like live in the moment, man. Don't worry about tomorrow, bro. Right? I can't believe you're so capitalistic and greedy. Why can't you loan me $20? Oh, you want me to pay you back for the last 100 I borrowed? Man, like, I can't believe you're like live free, man. Let go of your debts, bro. Can I borrow $20? Right? That's not what living in the present is. That's avoiding living in the present. What living in the present literally means is that the only time you can act is in the present. Like in this day and moment, this is the only thing that, this is the only time that you can act. Once you really realize that, your life will turn around. Because this is it. This is all you've got. This moment. This moment, this moment, this moment. And for those of you that want to get over, how do I learn to detach and let go? Mandalas. Build something beautiful with colored rice and then destroy it. All right, shall we go to posts? Friends? Okay. Just a little bit of light philosophy. Yeah, I thought we were doing posts like 51 minutes ago. Yeah, fair enough. Okay, so we're going to watch this thing. All right? I don't know if y'all have seen this, but I've heard some devastating things.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to Parent Aware, where we provide parent.
Oh my God. Have you guys seen this before?
Parents with information they. Hello, everyone. Welcome to Parent Aware, where we provide parents with information they can use to keep their kids safe. I'm Sergeant Brian Gunsley with the Orange County Sheriff's Department, and today I'm going to show you how to search your child's room. The first step is to remove the child, or the teenager in this case, from the room. You don't want them in the room because their protests may distract you from doing a thorough search. Hey pal, gonna need you to leave the room. Thanks, we'll talk later.
I'm only seeing...
It's important to search your child's room every once in a while, like I would say about every 6 months. Unless you...
I only hear audio from the left ear too. What's up with that? That's a video thing, right? Okay.
Suspect that they're using drugs or alcohol, then you're going to want to do it more often. The way I would search this room is to split it into sections. So this would be my first section to do, and then another section would be maybe this area right here, and then the closet, and then this bed, and then probably anything that's on the floor. So what I recommend is to start searching from top to bottom and then left to right. So here I would start just searching in this plant, and then go across to the right, and then we'll search into whatever containers that are here. Always want to look inside the containers and inspect things thoroughly. See, here we have a container with, looks like a place for someone to hide something. So I'm going to hang on to that. Certainly want to talk about that in a little bit. And then just kind of look through everything.
Does this?
When it comes to books, you just want to search through all the pages and just see if you see anything. Here we have a picture, it looks like, of a child with a gun to their head. This may indicate that they're thinking about committing suicide. So that's something that we want to talk about with our child.
Dude, this is insane. Are they going to model the conversation, like how they talk about it afterward?
Oh, here we have something. This looks like a scale of some sort. So that could be used by someone who's maybe purchasing drugs or selling drugs.
Dude,
so
where do you find CD cases that have scales inside?
Now, here's something that looks like a container of some sort. We see what's inside. We have hidden in here, we have some, looks like marijuana. So I am going to hang on to this. We're going to have a little talk about that.
What?
This is a concern.
Isn't this just going to teach your kids?
Use this to get high.
Just going to teach your kids not to hide stuff in their room?
So if you have dust off or any type of computer duster in the room, we want to remove that because that could be used as something dangerous and that could be deadly.
Compressed air is deadly?
And also, it's very important to be respectful of the child's property.
Oh, yeah. Be respectful. That's important.
Because
when you rifle through other belongings.
It's just the appropriate thing to do. Here we have a vaping
It's appropriate
device.
To be respectful.
We're going to hang on to that.
Who has like 6 pieces of clothing in a drawer?
Okay, there.
And like
I have a pipe.
1 piece of drug paraphernalia per drawer?
Socks.
Like the ratio of drug paraphernalia to clothing is 5 to 1?
Here,
An empty drawer?
And then if you notice anything that's unusual in the room, like this is
toilet paper and Ajax?
Unusual. Nothing, I don't see anything with that.
Abrasive cleaners? What is this, Fallout?
In his room. So
random amounts of abrasive cleaner are found in each and every drawer that you open?
Another container. that we will talk to him about. And certainly you want to collect all these items.
What on earth?
They shouldn't have them in their room.
Yeah, the false Ajax should be stored in the kitchen.
And here I have a couple of little baggies. It looks like they may have had some drugs in them or something at some point. So that's another indicator. So this looks like it might be something. I'm familiar with this as a container. So this is something that people can buy online, these hidden compartments. So as you can see, it has liquid above and below, but the container, it's a false container in the middle that people can hide things in there. Hang on to that. Journals are good to go through.
What?
As a parent, you have every right to search your child's room. There is no legal problem with that. So be sure to take advantage of that and search your child's room while they're under the age of 18. Here, we just want to take a look through the journal and just see if there's anything suspicious. And here's a page where it looks like they're drawing pictures of marijuana references on here. And then usually just go through the bed. You can remove the sheets and all the bedding and just take a look at the mattress. Make sure the mattress doesn't have any openings in it where someone could put or hide something in here.
What kind of relationship do you think that this person, like...
And that may match up with the pills that we found here. So that's good to have. We'll need to find out more about that. And then you want to search underneath, and we have Budweiser found underneath it.
A bottle of warm beer underneath the bed. That's next level plays, chat.
The last area that you want to search is now everything that's
I'm just going to have a random smattering of pills, warm beer, fake Mountain Dew containers.
We'll just go through some clothing. Of course, the pockets always is where you're going to find stuff. So these are indicators that...
Dude, I'm pretty sure that if your parents regularly search your room, you're just not going to hide anything in your room, right?
And then, of course, the backpack. Now, the best time to probably do a search is when your child is at school. Do the search of the room, and then when they come home, finish that search up by checking the backpack. And you can also have them remove, especially if you found all this, you're going to want to have them remove anything that's in their pockets, and you want to check the backpack. And so in here, we're finding a few more items. This is a vape device. Let's see. And this is a highlighter, which appears to be a highlighter, but this is something that can be purchased online.
This video is like a education of
pipe.
How to hide things from your parents by a cop.
Hides within the highlighter. So when you're searching, you want to definitely go through everything very carefully and inspect things closely, just in case your child has something like this hidden in there. You're going to want to find it. It's very important to conduct a safety search like this because you want to know whether or not they're using drugs. Best way to prevent adult addiction is to intervene early when they're young. So this is the time to prevent a lifelong struggle with addiction. Thanks for watching Parent Aware.
I don't know about that, man. I gotta say, I don't know. I mean, so intervening early is definitely the right move, so I can get behind that. I'm just not sure that alienating your child and like searching their room is like the right intervention. I mean, I've had tons of patients who have overly controlling parents, and it seems to fuel the addiction. It's just, your kid is not like, you're going to search their room, and then once they realize they can't trust you, they're just going to stop keeping stuff in their room. And they're going to go over to a friend's place. And all it takes... So I'm going to share with y'all a story, okay? So people were looking at adolescent marijuana use and parenting styles. And what they found is that there are some parents that are like very controlling and some parents that are really lax. So the interesting thing is that all it takes for teenagers to use marijuana is to have one parent in their social circle who is lax. So all you need is like one parent who's like hands off, and then all the kids go to their house and they smoke pot. Like that's what happens. So I'll see if I can pull up the study for you guys, but it's really interesting. And it was looking at like social networks and like the influence of parenting styles and the friends, your friends' parents, and how your friends' parents use how their parenting style affects like an entire school's usage of substances. So I mean, this felt to me like, so I'm with the police officer to a certain degree that, you know, some things kids don't have a right to, but like I can't think that this is a healthy way to engage with your child. Like this just seems incredibly violating of trust. And I don't know exactly, I mean, what you, so like once they turn 18, you're going to stop searching, and then suddenly like they're going to be fine because you've prevented them from using drugs through your, you know, draconian measures. I'm really confused by what I'd be really curious what the outcomes of this are. But kind of curious, chat, did you guys have parents that regularly searched your room? And do you guys think that was a mistake? Like, do you wish they had searched your room? I mean, so here's what I found to be effective in terms of like helping your kids not use drugs is like communicating with them and building trust. Because if they trust you, they're going to listen to you. Right? Like if your kids understand that you have their best interests at heart, and you telling them that you have their best interests at heart is not sufficient. They have to understand it. And if they have to understand it, I know this sounds kind of crazy, but it's possible that like you may think you have their best interests at heart, but their best interests aren't necessarily yours to determine. Right? What's good for them is like, part of that is for you to determine, and part of that is for them to determine. I know it's kind of crazy. But a parent doesn't always know what their kid needs. Like, we're not omniscient. Like, it's not like we take the omniscient pill when we become parents. Oftentimes we know more than our kids, and we definitely have an XP advantage, right? Like, so you have an XP advantage over your kid. You're going to be alive for 25, however much experience your kid has, you've got 25, 30 years more experience than they do. So there's a lot to that, but I think ultimately it's about like trust and communication. That's how you build a healthy relationship, and that's how you overcome addiction. Because generally speaking, my experience has been that when you force people to like stop using drugs for some amount of time, it's a coin flip. Like as soon as they have some degree of control in their life, either they slip back into it or they kind of don't. And it's kind of a coin flip. The whole like, yeah, there's a picture of a suicidal thing. Like we're going to talk to, like, what do you think the kid is going to say? Like, how does that conversation go? Like, I'm curious, like, what does the conversation look like? You know, it's like, hey, I found this note of a drawing. And the kid is like, yeah, it was a joke. And then the parent says, what? It's not funny. And the kid is like, yeah, it's not funny. And then what? Or what? Are you having suicidal thoughts? The kid's like, no. You think the kid's going to talk to you? Like, how does that, like, literally, like, how does this conversation go? Hey, buddy, I looked through your room and read your journal, and I found, you know, a disturbingly small volume of clothing and a disturbingly high volume of drug paraphernalia. Can you, what? I'm sorry, you can't have any of these things. The Mountain Dew, I'm sorry, son. The Mountain Dew with the false middle has to go. And I'm going to ground you for 3 months. Like I'm curious, like what's next? Like I want to see, like, let's play this tape through. You found all the drug paraphernalia. What happens next? Like, what does that conversation look like? Does the kid get punished? Or like what happens next? What is like, what does the relationship look like a year from now, 2 years from now, 4 years from now? I'm so curious. Right? I don't know what this looks like. Maybe we can find those people and have them come on. What do y'all think?
And inspect things.
Parent aware? Let's see where this person's from.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to Parent Aware, where we provide parents with information they can use to keep their kids safe. I'm Sergeant Brian Gunsley with the Orange County Sheriff's Department.
Okay, Orange County Sheriff's Department. We'll see. Maybe we can reach out to them and kind of ask them some questions. Yeah, so one person saying, I wish my parents were way stricter than me. I'm with you there. So I think like it's important for parents to be strict and set boundaries. Like I'm 100% with you. But I think that like that there still needs to be communication, right? Like, and that's where if you guys were, I think it was on stream either Friday or Monday, I forget, where what we try to teach, coach our parents in doing is like setting healthy boundaries that the kid sort of understands are coming. That's a huge part of it. And so we use this example, which was like a really good, it was a real success from the parent program, where a parent was like, so you're signing up for martial arts class. When Wednesday rolls around, do you want me to force you to go? Like you ask them ahead of time, do you want me to force you? Do you want me to be strict? And the cool thing is if you've established a communication with your kid, if you've established trust with your kid, they'll say, yeah, I want you to force me. And then like, it's awesome because you're going to support them. You're going to force them to go. They're going to hate you for it, but you have their permission. So they're not going to like resent you, right? They're going to be grateful for you forcing them. Whereas right now, what tends to happen is most parents who force their kids wind up with resentment. And then parents kind of get stuck. Like, I don't blame them because then they're confused. They're like, do I force it or do I not force it? And then some kids will be resentful to their parent either way. So if you force me to do it, I'm going to resent you for making me do it. And if you don't force me to do it, then I'm going to blame you for not pushing me hard enough. The parent's in a lose-lose situation. Y'all aren't making it easy on them all the time. Let's be honest. Is chat frozen? Okay. So it's not always easy. And so it's like, it's kind of not fair. Like the situation we as children put our parents in, which is like, be perfect. And I just don't think that like, that's, it's hard. So what we have to do is end up like, I think the solution is communication. It always comes down to communication. Because at the end of the day, the parent-child relationship is a relationship. And that means that y'all are like on a team. And it means that you have to coordinate, right? That's like the success. That's where success comes from, is coordination. That was wild though. I don't know what to make of that. Okay. Yeah, so when one person is saying, my parents don't want to communicate, and I think that's actually like a big problem, and oddly enough, I don't blame them for it, because I think that parents weren't really taught how to communicate. We're not formally taught how to communicate. So oftentimes a reluctance to do something is due to an inability or discomfort with doing it. Right? If you kind of think about like, hey, do you want to like, hey, chat, do y'all want to go do ballet today? And it's people like, well, I don't really know how to do ballet, so I'm going to say no. So a big part of reluctance comes from discomfort. There's even a study that was done about 30 years ago that we're looking at men's reluctance to go into couples therapy. Really fascinating paper. I think it was by Jim Groves. Let me see if I can find it. But essentially they like interviewed men and their reluctance to go to couples therapy. And essentially a big part of their reluctance is they felt like they were outgunned in therapy. So their spouses, these were heterosexual couples, their spouses who were women were like better at the language of emotions. So men would go to couples therapy and they just like couldn't communicate. And like their wife would be like communicating like very well, and they wouldn't know how to articulate their feelings. And then like the therapist would like, and they'd just be like owned, and it would be like GG. So they wouldn't go to therapy because like they felt like they were losing. In a sense, sometimes they were, because the woman is able to articulate, at least in this study, they're able to articulate their grievances and how they feel and stuff like that. And like the men just didn't know how to communicate. So they're reluctant to do things. So if your parents are reluctant to communicate, don't just blame them for it, right? Like try to understand that there may be a reason that they're reluctant. They may not know how, or I know this sounds crazy. Okay, chat, this may sound crazy. Maybe the reason they're reluctant to communicate is because when they try, you don't respond very well. Maybe their attempts at communication are met with some kind of hostility on your part, or maybe you shut down. So remember, it's a relationship. Got to take responsibility for that, right? Maybe you're not perfect in this relationship, right? So, okay then. So this is actually, we do the same thing to the parents, by the way. They're like, my child doesn't want to communicate. We'll say the same thing to them. We flame both sides, right? We flame everyone. That's what it's about. We tell the parent, hey, maybe the reason that your child doesn't want to communicate, my child just won't talk to me. And then we'll ask them, what happens when your child talks to you? Well, he just doesn't understand. Well, it's like, maybe that's why he won't talk to you, right? Maybe the reason that he doesn't talk to you is because you're not worth talking to. It's sad. But we have to understand that communication with a relationship requires ownership on both sides. Okay? Like, I'm serious. Like, we have to acknowledge problems. I'm not trying to flame people. Seriously, I'm not like trying to, but like, we got to be like authentic with like, hey, this is a problem. Like, we got to think about what our contribution to the situation is. Right? Maybe. Got to think about it. So take ownership. If your parents respond to you in a certain way, like if your parents are searching your room, okay? Like, this is a good example. Like, is it a complete, violation of trust and privacy? Like, yeah, I think it's insane. And at the same time, think for a second, if your parents are doing that, because I think it's important to do this. Like, ask yourself, is there, like, why have they been pushed to this point? Why have they been pushed to the point of searching my room? And that's going to be a really important conversation to have with yourself or with someone else, is you explore that, because you may realize, like, this is an important conclusion. You have to understand, is the reason that they don't trust me because I violated their trust over and over and over again? Or is it because they're like controlling and I actually haven't violated their trust? And resolving that within you is very important, because that's going to give you something to work on or strength, either one. So if you can fairly conclude that you have not violated their trust, then you're in the right, you're acting in accordance to dharma, and then that will give you the energy to, like, and strength to combat the injustice. Like, I'm serious, like, that's really important, that you really do that internal exploration and decide that you're in the right. On the flip side, you may actually discover that maybe you're not in the right, that maybe, like, you did kind of violate their trust over and over and over again. Which sometimes happens, right? So sometimes kids will violate their parents' trust. And if you have violated their trust, then that's something you need to own up, right? That's something you have to own and acknowledge. And that maybe the reason the parents are searching your room is because you've pushed them to the edge of sanity because of the way that you act. Right? So this is where what we really try to emphasize at Healthy Gamer is, like, for both sides to take whatever responsibility is theirs. And I'm not saying that one side is more responsible than the other. It comes down to the case. I've worked with, kids that are like absolute little sociopaths. And like the parent, like, the kid just refuses to take ownership over everything. And then like that's screwed. And then I've had parents who refuse to, complete narcissists who like refuse to take ownership over anything. And that relationship is screwed too. The relationships that are screwed are the ones where at least one party refuses to take ownership over their flaws. If you want a relationship to succeed, both parties have to take ownership of their flaws. I'm not saying it's 50-50. That's the other thing. It doesn't have to be 50-50. One party can screw up more than the other party. But it's tough. Because it's so easy to blame the other person. So I'll give you guys a quick story, okay? Quick Dr. K lore. I guess it's not really lore. So I was consulting with a company. And the company had done really well. They'd grown by they started in year 1. They did pretty well. Didn't quite turn a profit. Year 2, they grew by 400%, started turning a profit. Year 3, I'm working with one of the co-founders. And he's like, yeah, I'm going to get out of this. I'm like, that's insane. Like, it seems like things are going really well. And he's like, yeah, there's a problem. And I'm like, what's the problem? He's like, well, either me or my partner, he said, me or my partner is a malignant narcissist. There's just an argument over who it is. There's at least one malignant narcissist amongst the two co-founders. They just can't decide on which one is the problem. And so he's like, yeah, so I'm out. And so you need, for any relationship to work, you need both parties to take responsibility. And sometimes that responsibility means, if you really aren't, if you've got, a borderline parent or narcissistic parent, it means taking the right amount of responsibility, which may not be much. It may be I'm okay here. I didn't actually screw this up. Because this is what also happens with narcissistic parents, is that they will assign blame to the child that is unfair and leads to toxicity. So an appropriate assignment of blame is very, very important. So you got to be careful about that. Yeah, Chad, I mean, okay. Let's do another quick parent post. This is a good one. Okay, father here. My son is about to turn 14 and was diagnosed with depression. I struggled with what to do/avoid. What would you have hoped your parents had done? I want to see him happy again. More importantly, I want him to not to be felt left alone. This isn't easy. One specific point is video games. It's the only thing he craves and wants. On the other hand, he falls into a deep hole every time he needs to stop playing. Update. I'm overwhelmed by all the kind words and meaningful advice. Some of your stories are sad, and especially you came here to help me regardless of you having been left alone. You were great. Awesome. So this is a great post. And I think what makes it so good is that the first thing is that the dad is like, so dad has a 14-year-old son who is diagnosed with depression. Dad is figuring out, how do I help my son? And then is also kind of concerned about video games because the kid craves video games, but at the same time falls into a deep hole every time he needs to stop playing. So I think the first thing is that the first good thing that dad is doing is admitting some degree of ignorance. Okay. So I know this is hard, but oftentimes as parents, we're pretty ignorant. And I think the more you admit that you're ignorant, the better chance you have of sort of navigating things correctly. Right? We see this in medicine as well, where so one of my mentors once told me, respect the medicine and the medicine will respect you. What does that mean? It means don't take things for granted. Even a simple pneumonia can be fatal, right? Simple things can be fatal. You have to respect the medicine and the medicine will respect you. So in that same way, respect the fact that you're not a perfect parent and you have your best chance at becoming an excellent parent. So the first thing is that the parent is acknowledging that they don't know everything. They're seeking external help, right? Second thing is that, the parent is trying to understand, okay, I don't know how to support my son. So I think that the parent their heart is in the right place. I think their instincts are in the right place. The most important thing you can do is let the child not feel alone. So this is something that I'll sometimes explain to our coaches, which is that sometimes people in our coaching program are going through tough stuff. And as a coach, you can't really do anything about it. Sometimes there are people that are going through divorce or other things that you really can't control, like medical problems, chronic medical issues. We really can't fix that for them. But what we can do is help them not be alone in it. We can at least kind of share that burden with them and support them through it. And so that's really, really important when people are depressed, is that you can't necessarily fix the depression for them, but you can, let them know and be there for them despite it not getting better, right? You can let them know that you're there in their corner should they need something. And even the idea that you're available and there for them can be enough, even if they never take it. If they never take advantage of it. They never ask you for anything. It can mean an immense amount to know that they are not alone in this world. The people who really deal with really bad suicidality in my clinical experience are the ones that ultimately feel alone. That's the most common thing. It's not really depression. It's feeling alone that I think correlates a lot with suicide. So I think your heart is in the right place in terms of, wanting to make sure your son doesn't feel alone. Now, on the second point, what should you do? How do you approach this? So I think sharing your concerns and your fallibility is actually really healthy. To approach your son and say something like, I know you were recently diagnosed with depression. I'm not quite sure how to support you, but I'm going to try. I know this is a new experience for you and it's a new experience for me, but I hope that if we kind of work at it together, we'll be able to get through this. I'm optimistic that we'll be able to, and I'm here for you. I don't know how. I don't know when. I don't know what it's going to involve, but we'll figure it out together. So that's the message. You don't have to have all the answers. All your son really needs to know is that you're going to be there for them and you're going to try. And very practically, it sounds like the kid already got a diagnosis, so it sounds like you're plugged into mental health treatment, which is a really solid plus, arguably also the most important thing. Now we get to the video games. right? Because dad has a very valid concern here, because let's remember that video games can be something that can actually help your child when they're struggling with depression, right? So they give your child kind of an escape. There are online communities, people that they can connect to. There's a sense of connection with people online that they don't have to be embarrassed about, how they look or what they wear or anything like that. Like, social connections in real life can be very judgmental. People can get judged for their weight, the color of their skin, all kinds of stuff, whether they have acne on their face, especially if they're 14. So sometimes meeting people online can be like very comforting because they don't really judge you. I mean, arguably they judge you more because the internet is a judgmental place, but it's surprising how non-judgmental the internet can actually be. How much authentic support that has no strings attached. What you can find on the internet like that. And at the same time, dad is noticing that when you get too much into video games, that maybe like it's negatively impacting you. And so that's also true as well, that games can serve as an escape, but they can also become a crutch. They can also become an addiction that will feed the depression. So I think having a very solid conversation with your kid about understanding what do you like about games. It's the only thing you look forward to. I want to make you happy. So to acknowledge those things, to understand those things, what do you look forward to about games? What makes them happy? What do you want me to do in relation to your gaming? Do you want me to support you in doing it? Is that really what you need right now? And also raising your concerns. Even though I know that the games are really good for you and I want to support you, at times it seems like they actually make things worse. At times it seems like when you play video games, even though you feel good today, you're not able to do your schoolwork, and then your depression seems to get worse when you start failing your classes. How do we navigate this? That's the key question. To raise the benefits and the downsides, put them to your kid, and then ask them, how do we navigate this? Give them some ownership of it, right? Empower them to decide like what we should do or what they want to do. And then as a parent, ultimately what you want to do is set a boundary. And once you've had this conversation, then you can actually set a firm boundary. And you can say, okay, I understand that you want to play video games. I understand that they make you happy. So this is like what I think you want to do. At the same time, because your grades still are important to you and like these other things are important to you, I'm going to have to set some limits around them. What do you think about that, right? So ask for their feedback and say that, okay, I'm going to try this for a couple of weeks, and if it doesn't work for you, we can reevaluate. Let them know that nothing is set in stone. It's a trial period. So what I want you to do, I'm going to try to help you with your homework like 3 days a week. And we're going to make sure that you at least do the bare minimum. I'm not telling you to get straight A's, but can we shoot for like a 3.0? How do you feel about that goal? And if it's really hard to study, we can try to reevaluate. But I want you to like study 3 days a week, and then you can game like, let's like make sure you do 3 solid hours of work on Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday. And come Thursday, we're going to check in. I'm going to ask you, hey, have you felt like you did enough work for the week? Or is it really hard? Okay, go ahead and just play. Don't worry about it. Why don't you take Thursday, Friday, and Saturday? Like, I don't want you to touch a school book. If you want to game, go ahead and game. We're going to go for a hike on Saturday morning. You can game all evening. And then Sunday morning, we're going to wake up and we're going to focus back on school. How does that sound? Right? Check in with them. And the truth is that like kids want to do well in school, right? And if they don't feel like they're doing well in school, ask them about it. Don't just take their games away. Hey, what makes it hard for you to do well in school? Right? Like try to inquire, try to understand. Is it the depression? Is it something else? Do you ever feel like you've got ADHD? I know it's something that kids struggle with a lot. Is it the subjects are boring? Like what can we do to help? How can we figure this out? Right? So it's about communication. It's about still setting limits because like we had someone earlier in chat who was saying, my parents weren't strict enough. So as a parent, you do need to be to a certain degree strict. Like your 14-year-old with depression is not going to be mature enough or in the right frame of mind to make good long-term decisions for themselves. So you want to respect their input, get their input, and then set limits that incorporates that. Right? You don't want to sort of be like a dictator from the top saying, this is what we're going to do. We're going to search your room because instead of asking you, hey, are you using drugs? Like maybe just ask your kid. And if you have the right kind of relationship with your kid, they'll tell you. Right? They'll tell you. Like I know it's kind of crazy, but if you have that kind of relationship, they will tell you themselves. And so it's about communication. It's great that you're trying to understand if you're like, you're that dad. And at the same time, like, it's okay to set limits. But work with your child about what those limits should look like and reevaluate on regular basis. Right? If 3 hours, 3 days a week isn't enough, then maybe you got to make it 4 days a week. And you can say, like, okay, so like, let's do Monday through Wednesday. And I really want you to try to get all your work done. I'm going to try to help you. We'll sit down. I've got to pay the bills on Mondays anyway. So we can both sit down at the dinner table. We're going to both do our work. And when Thursday rolls around, you get this. You want a PS5? Like, you hit a 3.0. Then you'll get a PS5. You know, you can make gaming a part of their reward structure. It's totally fine. So it's about communication. It's about understanding. It's about working with your kid. Because this is the big lesson I've learned working with hundreds of kids with video game addiction. If a parent is if the parent and child aren't on the same team, you're screwed. Like, to conquer an addiction, you can't have parent versus child plus addiction. It can't be a 2v1. You're going to lose that game every single time. Every time you play it. It's got to be, to overcome a real addiction, you need the parent and the child on the same friggin' team. And then it's an uphill struggle. It's like a 50-50 if you and the kid are working together. It's like a 10% chance or 5% chance if the kid is working against you. And believe me, I've worked with tons of parents who the kid is working against them and doesn't want to give up the addiction. And like, then you end up with like these like fake Mountain Dew cans with stuff in the middle and all these other like, you know, devices that allow you to use drugs without anyone realizing. Like, the kid will find a way. Kids are smart. They'll find a way. So you got to work with them. And that starts with communication. Yeah, so someone's joking, parent plus addiction versus child. We've seen that too, and that does not work well, right? I think, unfortunately, there's a high number of people who find their way to Twitch and either become streamers or Twitch chat who have had parent plus addiction versus child. Like, seriously, chat, like, you know, I haven't done studies on this, but just the number of interviews we've done and like what we've seen in our content creator program, the number of streamers who have some kind of emotion, like what's called an early childhood adverse experience. There's some acronym there. Childhood adverse experience or something like that. Early life adverse experience. It's basically some combination of, what is ACE? What is it? Adverse childhood experience. Maybe that's it. Yeah, just adverse childhood experience. So the number of like streamers who have like ACEs is like way above the regular population. So either a parent with a substance use problem, like, oddly enough, also parents that are like quite old. So a lot of the like streamers that we've talked to are like, have, you know, they had parents that were like second marriages, third marriages, substance use, trauma, emotional neglect. It's super high. Yeah, maybe CPTSD. I'm not really sure because we don't really do true diagnostics. And diagnosing CPTSD is like a complicated process that involves a lot of diagnostic work. Any theories on why this is? Yeah, so I think there's something about growing up in a situation that you're kind of like, oh God, blurred. Fixed? There we go. Okay. I think there is something about being broken on the inside that allows you to connect with other people on the internet. So that would be like, I don't know how else to put it, but, you know, we're drawn to people who are just as broken as we are. And so I think there's something about just who we become when we're like a little bit broken on the inside that allows other people to connect with us. I also wonder a little bit about the borderline personality structure. So like, if you think about histories of trauma, so when you have some kind of adverse childhood experience, there's a greater chance that your personality structure will organize into what's called a borderline personality structure. So I think we see this, it's almost a competitive advantage if you're in the streaming field, where the borderline personality structure is hypersensitive to the opinions of others. So you're very tuned in to like what other people think about you. As a result, you're like very, very conscious of how you are portrayed, and you're very good at like crafting a persona. So that's what happens with BPD. And so I think if you look at like what are the psychological advantages for becoming a successful internet personality, I think having a borderline personality organization may be an advantage, because you're very sensitive to your viewers and you kind of know instinctually like what they want and what they need and how not to piss them off and how to make them happy, which is what happened when you had like children with like, traumatic households. Is children have to learn like, how do I make these people happy? What do I need to become to make this person happy? And so they get training growing up, which is like very devastating on some level, at like learning how to instinctively make other people happy. And as a result, when they like show up on the internet, like they know what they need to become. And this is also why they struggle with so much burnout, because they have to become this thing for y'all all the time. And they have to be that thing, and they can never stop being that thing. And that which made them successful, and we see this kind of interestingly, where the more successful the streamer is, the worse this problem gets, where they feel trapped. So early on, when you're like a small streamer with like 5 viewers or whatever, right? You've got like a YouTube channel that's got like 25 views. You have full creative license, so you can make whatever your heart desires. And then what happens is you start to get successful is like, something interesting happens. At the beginning, you're making what your heart desires and the internet loves you for it. But at some point in the creative process, you start to doubt yourself and you start to wonder, do I need to continue giving people what I've given them in the past, or should I give them what my heart desires now? Because what my heart desires now is different from what it used to be. And so then we get into this situation where the more successful you become, the more trapped you become as a content creator, where you have to give them what you used to give them. You can't change. You can't grow. You can't evolve. You can't do something risky. Right? Because the internet hates you for it if you don't pull it off perfectly, because they start to expect perfection from you. And we've seen that recently, where like people get crapped on to no end. And so like they feel trapped, and then they have to make content. They become slaves to the content. It becomes the grind, because it's no longer fun anymore, because you can't risk you can't risk a mistake. It's a profession that demands perfection. And people are talking about cancel culture exactly. Like you never know when you're going to get canceled. I remember we had a stream with Technician, Code Miko's, the brains behind Code Miko. And she was kind of saying like she has TOS PTSD. Because you never know when you're going to do like a TOS violation. And she's like, yeah, I can't show my feet on stream. And I was like, what? She's like, yeah, I can get banned for like showing feet on stream. I'm like, that's okay. You never know, right? It's so hard. And so if we kind of think about the original question is like, why do streamers have such a high incidence of like trauma and emotional neglect growing up and adverse childhood experiences? It's probably because something about that affects their personality structure. And then that personality structure actually is like adapted to performing well on the internet. Because they're very tuned in to what people want and what people need. And then they give it to them. And the more they give it to them, the more trapped they feel. So there's a question, how to differentiate between depression and ADHD. We're actually going to talk about that. I have a lecture that I'm preparing about depression and ADHD. So hopefully we'll get to that maybe this week. So for some people who are saying this is literally misgif, I wouldn't really know, but I think it's like literally like 75% of streamers that we've worked with. It's a systemic problem. It's like a problem of the profession at the moment, because there aren't the support structures in place to help people like navigate that. So a couple of things. I see someone saying, I need more resources for CPTSD. I'm in therapy. I need more help. So your therapist is a good person to turn to if you feel like you need more resources. But we do have, we did an interview. I think the YouTube video should be up. And I think it's about, can I be fully healed? I think is, you may want to look at that. This is a post essentially about, because you haven't actually, oh no. Let's see if this, yeah, hold on. So I'm going to link this real quick. So this is a good interview. Oh my God. Yeah, okay. Tactile found it. So I think that's a good example of like how I look at people with CPTSD. There's like this thing at the end. If you guys go to, yeah. So like go to like Panchakosha. There's also some stuff in this in Dr. K's guide that goes into more detail. So if you guys watch the CPTSD video and it resonates with you and you want to learn more about Panchakosha theory, you can kind of check out the guide. That's sort of what the guide is there for. I don't have a whole lot planned with schizophrenia at the moment. I mean, we can certainly do stuff. I think part of the... we tend to focus on things that are a little bit more common. So thankfully, schizophrenia is like quite rare. It's maybe 1% of the population. Whereas if we're looking at things like depression or anxiety or trauma, we're talking like 20%, 30%, 40% of the population. But we'll work on it. Okay. Y'all want to do another post, or you guys want to do like Q&A? Okay. Post. Let's do post. Okay. All right. Ooh, this is a good one, chat. All right. I hate the limbo of not being able to get up and do something important, but because I feel guilty, I won't do something I enjoy either. I don't know how to explain it. I'll have dishes, washing, or cleaning to do or whatever. I know it really needs doing. I sat there trying to force myself to get up and do it. I know once it's done, I'll feel better. Then I can relax and watch TV or play a video game. But during that paralysis, I can't even do those other things I'd like to do. I can't turn the TV on or play the game I want to play with this free time I have, which is limited as it is, because I feel guilty that I'm not doing the thing I need to do. So I end up just sitting on my phone or basically doing nothing, wasting the time I had until the very last minute. Then I'll rush everything I had to do, doing it poorly or leaving it only half done before I have to leave the house or do something even more important. I think it's time to consider medication. Okay. So this is something that I remember very, very well. So we're going to start by telling you, so let's like frame this issue for a second, then I'm going to tell you all a story, okay? So sometimes we have stuff that we need to do, but we procrastinate in doing it. We can't bring ourselves to do it. We know it needs to get done, but we can't do it. And then the problem is like, if we're going to procrastinate, we can't even like have fun, right? So you can't even enjoy yourself, because if you try to enjoy yourself, you're just going to feel guilty for not doing it. So you can't really enjoy yourself. So you just end up like in limbo, wasting your time. And it's like, you didn't even have fun and you didn't even do the stuff that you wanted to do. It's like just screwed from the beginning. So I'm going to tell you all a story. So back in my degenerate years, when I was, in the midst of the video game addiction. So this was like maybe a year or two after I finished college, where I didn't have a job. And I was staying with my dad, and I remember like he would like go to work every day, right? So I was in a house with him, and basically what would happen is I'd wake up in the morning, I'd like pretend to work for a little while and like look for a job and like answer emails and things like that. I remember my computer was in the living room, so we'd wake up in the morning, and I didn't want to like pretend to be a degenerate, right? Or I wanted to pretend to be like a normal person, so I couldn't like actively be a degenerate because then my dad would get pissed at me. So I'd wake up like when he woke up, and I'd like, shower and stuff like that. And I'd sit down, I'd be like studious, like, I'm checking my email in the morning. He'd leave for work around 9. He'd get up around 8. And then like, as soon as he leaves, like, it's like, let's play games, right? So I'd start gaming, and then like I'd game in a degenerate manner until like 6 p.m., 7 p.m. because he got back pretty late. And then as soon as like he's coming back, like once I know like I'm not going to queue up at like 6 o'clock, right? So I stop, and then it's like, let's pretend to work. And so when he comes home, in my mind, there's kind of this vision of like, oh, like Alok was working so hard when I left at 9 a.m. this morning, and it's now 7 p.m. And then like, he's working hard. He's such a hard working boy. Oh my goodness. It is not working out for him. Unfortunate, right? So I pretended to be a normal person. So sometimes the most frustrating thing in my day was when my dad didn't go to work in the morning. He'd like get ready or whatever, and he'd just like hang out at home. And like 9:15 would roll around and be like on his laptop, and I'm like, when is this guy leaving? So like I'm not actually working, so I can do something, waste my time for an hour. But then like he wouldn't leave the house. And then like 10 o'clock would roll around, like 10:15, like I'd subtly like hint or ask, right? I'd be like, are you going to work today? Like I couldn't ask him that, right? Because I couldn't let him know that I was just waiting for him to leave to start playing video games. And because I'm supposed to be working, right? So let's like, like, let me continue working. Like, no big deal that you haven't left the house. And I just wait for him to just leave so I could get on with my day. And he like 11 would roll around, 11:30 would. I'm like, what the hell are you doing, man? You're like messing up my entire day. Like I don't actually have anything productive to do. And now you're like forcing me to find like pseudo productive things. Like I guess I'll look for more jobs, but I really don't. I guess I'll open up Excel and do some random analysis. I'm just going to search websites and put things into an Excel spreadsheet because I have nothing better to do with my time. I didn't really have anything to do. It just pissed me off so much because he just wouldn't leave. And so I would ask him about it, and then he told me that like some days he'd come out and he'd finally tell me, he's like, today I'm going to take rest. I'm like, what does that mean, take rest? And he's like, I didn't ask him that because he's like, I'm going to take rest. And what that sort of means is like dad is going to like wander around in his PJs for like 6 or 7 hours and like play a bunch of bridge, and then we'll like go to lunch at some point. And so he would just like have these days where he would just AFK. Like, I didn't know if he had patients or if he had meetings or what, like, because he was an oncologist. So, like, but some days he just, like, AFK. And those are, like, the worst days of my life because it's like, I can't, like, I have nowhere to go. I'm just waiting for you to leave and you're just, like, AFK in your PJs playing bridge. And it's like, now what? And, like, sometimes we'd, like, go out to lunch. Like, that was pretty cool. Like, we'd go out to lunch and we'd make small talk and stuff. And so then, like taking rest would basically be like he'd just take a vacation day, just like you'd be chilling. Like he wouldn't do anything productive. He'd wander over and look at the exercise equipment from time to time and then decide against it, then go back to playing bridge. And so, it was kind of weird. But then like later on, when I was starting to put my life together, I realized that some days, like I'm going to do that. I'm going to do that. I'm going to take rest. So that's what I would tell myself in the morning. Like there are some days, like even when I was in med school, like I didn't feel like working. So I'd wake up and I did this thing every morning where I like woke up at 5 a.m. every day or 4 a.m. every day. I'd be like, you know what? I'm just not feeling it today. Like I'm going to take a rest. I just tell it in my mind. And then once I did that, like I didn't feel like working. And once I like gave myself the option of like taking rest, it's just like, I'm not going to get anything from this day. This day is an L. It's like 6 a.m. and the day is an L. All right, let's go get ourselves like a breakfast sandwich from down the street. We're going to stay in our PJs. We're not going to go to class. I don't really need to go to class today. I can watch all the lectures tomorrow. Just give yourself a day of rest. At like 6 a.m. Just just decide that you're not going to work today. And it can be incredibly liberating, right? So for some people are worried about this becoming like a slippery slope and like what happens the next day and things like that. So I want to be very clear, like this is something very different from like the slippery slope. Right? Because it's something that's done with intention. It's like intentionally taking a day off and just being like, you know what? I'm done with it. It's not going to happen today. And the cool thing is when you give yourself that break, when you like allow yourself some amount of like vacation, right? And it's kind of like when we think about when I have kids, like some days it's like, okay, like we should eat healthy every day. Healthy. You will be nice and healthy. And then some days it's like the kids are like, yeah, can we just have pizza? And it's like, you know what? What the hell? Let's just have pizza. Right? And you just kind of give into that desire, but you give into it completely intentionally. It shouldn't be controlling you. It shouldn't be automatic. It should be purely intentional. And when you intentionally say to yourself, I am not allowed to work today, I'm just allowed to have fun, I'll take care of everything I need to tomorrow. And you kind of like promise yourself that, okay? But do it with intention. Say, tomorrow I'm going to get up and I'm going to be like a, normal person. I'm going to do the dishes. I'm going to get all my work done. It'll happen. I have faith in myself. But today, like, Dr. K needs like a day of rest. which is not really resting, it's just being a degenerate. But we're going to do it with full intentionality. And it's actually quite transformative. Because essentially what we see in this problem of like ADHD is that you can't work, and then you're going to beat yourself up for not working. And what really screws you is the beating yourself up part. Because on some days you just can't work. It's okay. But when you pile on, when you take one, strike and then you like add a second strike onto that, it's like you double down on the damage that's being done for the day, it screws you for the next day. And then it's like the third strike because you're dealing with the guilt. And then 3 strikes and you're out. So I know it sounds kind of weird, but like the part of the solution to this is actually alleviating the guilt, right? And how do we alleviate that guilt? We practice a little bit of self-compassion. And what does that look like, self-compassion? It means like it's okay for you to take an L, right? It's okay for me to not be super productive today. That's all right, right? And you can kind of acknowledge. So this process sort of starts with like, okay, I could try to beat myself to do this thing, and it's going to be super hard, and I'm going to be like drained and burnt out at the end of the day. I can struggle to do it and not end up doing it, and then like not even have fun because I'm going to feel guilty because I'm not working, and that's going to be an L. And then I'm going to waste the whole day on the phone. So I might as well just like, if I'm going to waste my whole day on the phone, I might as well just have fun today and give myself a day to like totally relax. And then tomorrow I'll start fresh tomorrow. And it's actually quite liberating. You'll be surprised because once you kind of give yourself that day of rest, you're going to reduce the burnout. You're going to reduce the guilt. And then when you wake up the next day, like you're like, yeah, that yesterday was awesome, but man, I really need to get to work. You will be amazed at how your mind changes the next day because it's not going to beat you up. It's going to be like, okay, enough of a break. Let's get back to it. You'll actually find yourself being motivated. Okay? So it's kind of bizarre. So the last thing to kind of think a little bit about in terms of if you guys are stuck in this problem is that acknowledge the bind. And I sort of mentioned that, but I think it's subtle, but it's very important. So if we're thinking about how to move past something, the first thing that we have to do is acknowledge where we are. So even sitting down and like practicing, once again, self-compassion, because what does that look like? It means like today is one of those days where like I'm kind of screwed if I work and kind of screwed if I don't. Like this is one of the days where I'm stuck. Today is a day of stuckness, where I'm trapped between wanting to work and being unable to work. And then, not wanting to have fun and feeling guilty, but like not being able to work. So it's one of these days where I'm stuck today. And acknowledge to yourself that like this is a day of stuckness. And so it's kind of weird because it's like our focus is on doing the work. And then we're stuck in the middle between these two things. Whereas what we really need to do is acknowledge the fact that we're stuck and we can't move in either direction. Today, it's going to be hard for me to have fun, and today it's going to be hard for me to do work. And so that's what sort of like meeting yourself where you're at is. That's where self-compassion comes from. Because as long as you're looking at what you should be doing instead of where you are, that's going to create guilt. It's going to create frustration. The more guilt and frustration you create, the more it's going to negatively impact your motivation. So instead, acknowledge that you're stuck, right? Be a little bit compassionate towards yourself. Admit that like actually this is kind of hard, right? I've got ADHD. Sometimes it's hard for people with ADHD. I wish things weren't like this. By all means, say that kind of stuff to yourself. I wish things were not like this, but at least admit to yourself how things are. And by acknowledging that sense of stuck, you'll be amazed. That'll sort of reduce the guilt. And the key thing here is that we want to get rid of the guilt. We want to process the guilt. We want to move past the guilt because that's the real thing that's holding you back. And then have fun. Be like, okay, I'm going to try to have as much fun as I can today. And if I feel guilty, I'll notice those feelings. And then maybe I'll take a few hours off, and then maybe I'll try to work later if I feel super guilty. Let's see what happens. And if I spend the whole day doing this, that's totally fine. Right? It's kind of interesting, but like acknowledge where you are, acknowledge the bind, practice some self-compassion, try to get underneath that guilt, try to get behind that guilt, give yourself a day of rest, and then start fresh tomorrow. It'll transform your life, I swear. It's like so good. I mean, that's literally how I was the same way, where I'd like struggle to work and just couldn't do it. And then what I actually found is that like I could fight myself all day today and be exhausted tomorrow and get nothing done, or I could just take rest today and then feel fresh tomorrow morning and start fresh on a new day. And then a lot of people are sort of saying, but what happens if that's every day? I don't think that's the case. What I find for everyone, so people who are wondering about it being every day, if it's every day, you're living life on autopilot. And if you know what I mean, you know what I mean. The days in my life where I was doing this every day, it was not intentional at all. It was 100% autopilot. 100% guilt, escaping from guilt, suppression, autopilot, trying to escape, trying to numb myself. That's how you get into an everyday degenerate pattern. The intentionality of giving yourself a rest day is completely different. And the difference comes not from the actions you're doing on the day are exactly the same. It's not from the actions, it's from the mindset, it's from the attitude. Am I doing this with intention or am I living life on autopilot? And once you start living life with awareness and intention, things start to change. So don't worry about it happening every day. If it's happening every day, it's not happening with intention. It's happening because of autopilot. And even if you start doing it intentionally, it'll start to change. Because once you start living your life with intention, then you can live with your life with intention. If I wake up today and I say using, I know it's kind of weird, but like the discipline of my mind, and I say, today I'm not going to do any work and I'm just going to play video games all day. I'm going to try to at least eat healthy. I'm going to have a smoothie. I get pizza at night, but we're going to do smoothie and we're going to do something healthy for lunch. And then we're going to be degenerate tonight. That ability to live your life with intention is like your brain wiring, your frontal lobes wiring, and then you will have that ability on the next day as well. You've practiced living your life with intention. So if you set an intention in the next day, then you will be able to follow that intention more easily. It's about getting away from autopilot and living your life with intention. And that's literally how I got from 2.5 GPA to Harvard Medical School. It's switching my life from being on autopilot to living with an intention. And it still means I was gaming. It's not like I ever stopped gaming, chat. It's still played a bunch of video games. Still will. It's about controlling, being in control, living life with intention instead of autopilot. Oh yeah, name every game? Okay, you guys want to play this game? Okay, sure. So I'm going to start with when things started going bad. So it was StarCraft. Okay. Then, more importantly, it wasn't even regular StarCraft games. It was StarCraft custom games, yo. That's the real nasty, that's the nasty gaming. It's not even, no ladder or anything. It's degenerate custom games. Then it was D2. So a lot of D2, farming those Stones of Jordan. Then it was Warcraft 3. First, it was Warcraft 3 ladder. And then towards the end of the, last couple of years, once again, ladder didn't, because ladder was too much work. So it's the degenerate custom games. And I don't know if you guys remember this, but in custom games, there's no matchmaking. So if you were good at a custom game, you could have a 95% win rate. So it's the opportunity to school some noobs, right? Crushing people left and right all the time. So that I could feel good about myself because my life was going nowhere. Because heaven forbid I play ladder and lose 50% of the time. That's not going to do it for me. Right? So we're talking about some Vampirism Beasts, some Vampirism Fire, some Enfos, some Dota, for those of y'all that really remember. Some good stuff. Right? Then it was WoW, but just a little bit. I started getting better around the time I played WoW. A lot of console gaming, by the way, in the meantime, right? Because you got to sprinkle it in with some anime, some Inuyasha, some Kenshin, some Neon Genesis, Lelouch, whatever the Lelouch anime is. You got to sprinkle that in. Some Naruto somewhere in there. Inuyasha is awful, by the way. A lot of N64 stuff, Mario. I played some Ogre Battle. Things like that. A lot of single player games Fallout and stuff sprinkled in. Oblivion. Morrowind. Old school stuff. So played some WoW. Didn't really get too into it. And then I kind of got my stuff together. And then, let's see. In the more recent years, it's single-player RPGs, DOS 2, Pillars of Eternity, Wizardry. I went back at some point when so there's even one point where I wouldn't let myself have a gaming PC. Because I was addicted, and I was I can't play these video games. So I had some crappy laptop, right? So what did I do? I installed Might Magic 6 and Might Magic 7 and Wizardry 8. And just play these old-school PC games, which are awesome, by the way. Amazing games. I wish someone would make a good party-based blobber RPG. I really miss that. Because those games are so good. It's truly open world. But the games are kind of scuffed if you guys haven't played these. You can really go wherever you want to. But you really don't belong in most of those places. But if you're like super fast and because the AI is bad, you can like run past some things and go into a dungeon and get some super powerful item and then like run out. But sometimes you'll get trapped and then like you have to restart the game. They're good games. Some really weird mechanics, right? So I really liked Wizardry because you could like you could level up by like using skills, and you can like level up by leveling. I mean, you can improve skills by leveling up. So you could actually grind, and it was great. So old school CRPGs. Let's see, what more? Yeah, and then at some point it became primarily like Dota and single player games. So got a Switch, so various Marios, Breath of the Wild, things like that. I'm close to beating Metroid Dread, which is phenomenal, by the way. Symphony of the Night is dope. Bloodstained is actually really good too. Hades is solid. Legend of Grimrap. Oh, and then I got into Warhammer about a year ago. Hollow Knight. I couldn't beat it, dude. Hollow Knight was too hard, dude. Oh my god. I couldn't beat the last guy. Yeah, Metroid Dread is amazing, dude. It's like, tried to play Ori, couldn't really get into it. I listen to the music though when I'm working. Warhammer Total War. Warhammer 2. I tried playing the original Doom, so I'm like halfway through the original Doom. Yeah, so I know there are a lot of people love League, and I'm sure it's a great game. It's just not my cup of tea. I played it on stream a couple times. I may try to get back into it, but I think it's one of these things where like coffee versus tea or cat people versus dog people. I think a lot of it is like how you're raised. So I grew up on Dota, so it just feels right to me. I think League has a larger player base, right? Like League has a player base that's like 5 times the size of Dota. But, I also think that Dota's a better game for boomers because League is full of these like skill shots and you need like reflexes and like you need hand-eye coordination, whereas like Dota's I think is like fewer skill shots, right? So you just like click a button, you click a hero, and like it auto aims it for you. So it's noob friendly that way. I also like it because I think it's more of the skill in Dota, I would say, is strategy as opposed to skill shots, which makes it easier for me. Yeah, so Dota's adding vector abilities. So do I pass the test, chat? Do I pass the test of being an authentic gamer? Oh, also, I can't forget about Dark Souls. So, dude, like, fell in love with Dark Souls. So this is a funny story. So I got to tell you guys about like when I started playing Dark Souls 1. So I played Dark Souls, and then I went down to the place where I think you need like a divine weapon to like kill people, right? And then like, otherwise, like the necromancers keep resurrecting them. And so the thing is, like, because in Dark Souls they don't tell you anything, right? So it's like I didn't know that there was like a such thing as a divine weapon, so I just like played Dark Souls. Dark Souls is fucking hard, by the way. So I just assumed that it was like this is just the next phase of the game where like, okay, I guess enemies are just respawning now. And you can't ever kill them permanently, and you just have to like run and dodge and fight them until you die. And then I was like, all right, screw this game. I'm done. Like, I can't, this is too hard. And I didn't realize that you could go to a different place. Like, I never went to the upper undead burg or the lower undead. I skipped some like early phase of the game and just got confused about where to go. And so kind of gave up. The other thing that happened the first time I played Dark Souls is I read about the Dragontail sword, which, by the way, if you guys don't know this, Dragontail sword is the biggest debate in Dark Souls. Because if you get the Dragontail sword, what happens is you one-shot everything. It's got no scaling. And then you one-shot everything, which means that you never learn how to play the game. Or Drake's sword, whatever. You never learn how to play the game. So I'm like one-shotting skeletons, one-shotting skeletons, going to places where I have the Dr. K doesn't belong, right? Because it's Dark Souls, and I'm like wandering into the catacombs with my Drake sword. And then like suddenly you hit this hard wall of like the Drake sword no longer one-shots anything, and you don't actually know how to play the game. You don't know how to dodge, you don't know how to parry, you don't know how to block, you don't know how to do anything. Because you've just been one-shotting everything with a Drake sword. And then you give up. So I went back years later, and I played it, and man, it was awesome. Like, I was like, no Drake Sword this time. Because one of my friends told me, he's like, Drake Sword is the biggest debate. Don't use the Drake Sword and you'll be fine. It's true. It's true. So then got into Dark Souls 1. I heard Dark Souls 2 was disappointing, so I skipped it over and went straight to 3 because I thought I don't have time to play video games anymore. So if I just have time to play 1, I'm going to play 3. Played 3. Sucked too much to do the DLCs. And then went back and loved it so much I played 2. And I guess with Scholar of the First Sin, 2 got a lot better. And I thought all 3 of them were fantastic. Really looking forward to Elden Ring. Was a little bit disappointed in Sekiro. It's not my cup of tea. So that's the gaming. What else? I'd like to play Valheim, actually. I started that, but... Oh, and a lot of DRG recently, too. Like a year or 2 ago. Ooh, Nier Automata is really good. FF12 was great. FF10 was good. Played a tiny bit of FF14. Played Cyberpunk. Thought it was really good, but too easy. Oh man, I haven't beaten Bloodborne. I'm on the last boss. And Bloodborne is just so hard. So then what happened is I didn't have a PS4 for a long time. So like after playing Dark Souls, like I finally got a PS4 like a year ago. And so played Bloodborne. And still need to do the DLC and like just can't beat the last boss. It's just too fucking hard, dude. It's too hard. I tried playing Gothic 2, couldn't get into it, even though I like old school games. I've never played Metroid. I've never played Minecraft. Yeah, so I want to try Horizon Zero Dawn, but next up on my list is God of War. So I have God of War, and I started it, but like haven't gotten to be into it. I also tried Persona, like couldn't get into Persona. So I'll try Horizon Zero Dawn. All right, chat. Well, I think I know what I'm doing for the rest of the day. I think we're going to have to take rest. Because all this talk of gaming. Maybe I'll play some Dota, dude. Got to play some of that. You know. You guys have excited me. You know what I thought was actually disappointing is the Jedi Fallen Order game. It was like kind of cool, but I felt like it was really just not a great... Okay, you guys, we'll see. We'll see. Let me just check my calendar because I think I have to work today. Yeah, we'll see. I'll work tomorrow. I'll wake up early. Please don't leave. You are helping me too much. No, but so that's the thing, right? So I had a like, so this is what I encourage y'all to do. So, you know, I worked this morning. I woke up early. And so now I've been working for like, you know, 7 hours. I mean, not working, but doing like housework and stuff too. So I got my kid ready in the morning and then I had like meetings and did some writing and stuff like that. So like even by 2 p.m., it's been like 7 hours of work. So now the question is, do I do like 11 hours of work today? And then take care of my kids in the evening? So let's meditate, I think. And then let's do yeah, so this is the other thing. So for those of y'all, so if you guys want to like play games and be healthy, let's just talk about this for a second. I highly, highly recommend trying to get on an early AM like schedule. Get on a solid circadian rhythm kind of schedule where you can start early. So what I really love about it is like, so back in med school, I used to wake up at like 4 a.m. And by the time noon rolled around, it's like I've already studied, like I studied for 2 hours in the morning. I went to class and then like you're kind of done at 2 p.m. You're like done for the day at 2. And you can actually like just hang out from like 2 to 8 with like no problem. For those of you who say that you're a night owl, so you can adjust your circadian rhythm. And even if you are a night owl, what I'd say is like go way early in the morning. So like I was sort of a night owl, but then what I realized is I'm not really a night owl. I'm just like a super, super morning person. Like I'm not a 7 a.m. person or an 8 a.m. person. I'm like a 4 a.m. person, like a 3:30 in the morning, 5 a.m. person, like wake up before dawn kind of person. Which I thought I was a night owl, but really what it is, it's like 3:30, 4 a.m., 4:30 in the morning. It's like I'm a super early morning person. Like 6 a.m. sucks, dude. 6 a.m. is for noobs. Like 9 a.m. is terrible. Like 9 a.m., 10 a.m. is like the worst hour of the day. Like, you got to start super early. So if y'all are night owls, you may be surprised that you're actually like early morning people. So get up before dawn. Do you guys realize how amazing it feels for the sun to come up and you've already done 2 hours worth of work? It's like so awesome. If you guys want to talk about like guilt-free gaming, like wake up at 4 a.m. and then work till 10 in the morning. Do 6 hours of work by 10 a.m. I'm serious. Like, you will be amazed how clear and fresh your mind is. And then by the time 10 a.m. rolls around, you're like, F it. I'm done for the day. I'm done for the day, and it's only 10 in the morning. Get yourself some food, play some games, take a nap at like 2 p.m., wake up around like 5, go to the grocery store, like do some stuff, hang out for a little bit, and then you're going to be lights out around 9 o'clock. Seriously. So if you're waking up at 4 a.m., I'd say like you should sleep around 8 or 9 o'clock. Right? So use some of that like positive melatonin stuff, dude. Like once the sun goes down, like you go down with it. Right? And then you wake up in the hours before dawn and the entire world is yours. If it's safe, go take a walk outside at like 4 in the morning, 5 in the morning. It feels amazing. The whole world, it's like the whole world is like absent and the entire world is yours. So try it. Yeah, if you've got a meeting at 4 p.m., then that's tough. So if y'all have like 9 to 5 kind of jobs, what I'd say, it's a little bit different. So I'd say like, wake up maybe not quite as early as 4 unless you're ready to be really done by like 6 or 7 p.m. But you can wake up still around like 6, and I'd still say try to work 1 or 2 hours before you go to work. And then like, because the interesting thing is that, so here's the big realization I had is that after work, you're tired no matter what. But you can wake up 1 or 2 hours earlier and not be tired at work. Or you can still get through work, right? You can be like 75% AFK at work. So what I really found, and that's what I found about class, is after class, I was tired no matter like what happened. I don't feel like working after class, but I could work before class and I'd be just as tired. Same thing. Yeah, seriously. So like do your stuff before you go to work. So now what I do, like whenever I have like writing projects and stuff, like even as part of my work, I try to do them like first thing in the morning before I stream. And then like I'm wiped after stream no matter what happens. 75 AFK therapists, best therapist. This is a funny story. I recently found out that some Dota players perform the best when they're slightly inebriated. And it turns out that they overthink things when they're not inebriated. And then they make mistakes in the game. And when they're slightly inebriated, they just go and they like wreck noobs. Because they like play like more instinctually, and it's like great. So I was very surprised to discover that. Yeah, so I wouldn't recommend using alcohol on a regular basis as a performance-enhancing drug. But, some people are like that. I think the real value is getting out of your head, right? So you don't have to use a substance to do that. What we actually advocate for is like you learn how to do that without a substance. All right, shall we meditate? How to have a social life when you sleep at 9? You kind of don't. So this is the unfortunate thing. So I found that when I was doing this kind of schedule, like it was really hard to have a social life, and I was actually kind of okay with that. I know it's kind of tough, but you can kind of be okay with it. The other thing is you can have a social life on Saturdays and Sundays. And then the other thing that you'll discover over time, so at the beginning, it's going to be hard to have one, but over time, you'll discover that there are other people out there like you, and that you guys like to be up early. And then it's like, instead of going to dinner with your friends at like 8 o'clock, you're going to breakfast with them at 7 in the morning. You guys go do something and you're like done by noon. And then it's like you go home for the day, and it's lovely. It's actually really fantastic. You just find the other people like you over time. Those people are usually over 70. That is correct. But there are many of them who are actually quite young. You just have to find them. I know it's kind of weird, but it's like these young and fit people. Like you'll find people that like, I have a friend that goes biking for vacations. And what she does is like, she'll like bike for hundreds of miles is her idea of vacation. So you end up with friends like this, that they're like, yeah, like let's wake up at dawn and go for like a 50-mile bike ride. And she's amazing. But the people exist. They're out there. You can be like, hey, do you guys want to get together for brunch? Like, people will do brunch. You know? It's cool. You just be like a brunch person. Do some, like, go, like, meet some people over 10 a.m. yoga class. Like, go hang out with them. You can socialize. Yeah, so for people who are saying, like, how do I convince my family I want to go to a meditation retreat instead of a 9-to-5 job? So if you guys want to convince your family that you want to do something besides a 9-to-5 job, I think the first thing you have to do is, like, demonstrate the viability of your option. So someone who's all for following your dreams, I think you still have to have, like, viable options. So I think HG is a good example of, you know, if I went to my wife and I said, hey, I want to do this thing called Healthy Gamer. And she was like, okay. And we like thought through it, right? I didn't like quit my job right away. I just worked more. So you have to demonstrate to your loved ones that it's what you want to do is a viable option. The other thing that I'd say is that if you're restrained by a 9-to-5 job, especially now more than ever, 9-to-5 jobs are starting to be less common, right? So employers are more flexible. Find a job that is like about work product as opposed to particular timing. So I know Google does this where like they don't care what time you come in. They just care that you get your work done. I mean, you may have some meetings and stuff, but I've had, you know, clients at Google who will like work from 4 p.m. to 4 a.m. and that's their schedule. And so they're okay with that. So just see if you can find a job that is better aligned as opposed to the 9-to-5. I don't think parents can be convinced if they've already made up their mind. I think, yeah, that's hard, but the way to convince someone, so we did a video the other day about how to convince anyone of anything. And it starts by understanding their viewpoint, right? So it starts by like, help me understand why you think a 9-to-5 job is like the way to go. Ask them to explain to you what the advantages are. And then like the more that you tunnel down into their reasoning, the more it'll probably fall apart. Because they may say, well, because that's what everyone else does. And so then you can, you know, question that and be like, okay, so do you think that the way to be successful is to do what everyone else does? And they say, yes. You should do what everyone else does. And then you can say, well, in my experience, actually, like, distinguishing yourself is, like, better than being average. What do you think about that? And then, you know, you can, like, just have a conversation with them. Oh, man, it's got to be, I imagine it's on YouTube now for people asking about it. Quick recommend new books. I don't really have books to recommend. I know you guys ask for this stuff all the time. I read fiction mostly nowadays, but Dune is good. I like Terry Pratchett a lot. Can you write a good book for us to read? I tried and am trying. So I'm going to write books, absolutely. So part of what we decided is actually that instead of publishing a book, that Dr. K's guide is what we came up with. It's essentially, if I was going to write a book about depression, anxiety, and meditation, that's what it would be. And the whole point of that is that it covers like the, you know, the scientific stuff and the spiritual stuff. And I think that the problem with a book, fundamentally in terms of learning or teaching a lot of people, is that it's linear. But not everyone needs to, you know, advance in the same sequence. So that's what we made instead of a book. So recommend fiction. So Age of Madness is stellar. If you guys have read Joe Abercrombie, like amazing. Netflix, Squid Game is really good. I'm watching You. I'm looking for good stand-up. I read Name of the Wind. I thought it was excellent. Three Body Problem was good. The second book, I kind of like fell off in the second book. Yeah, so I think Dave Chappelle, I mean, like, there's like interesting social commentary there, but I don't think it's as funny as it used to be. Like, Sticks and Stones is okay, but The Closer, like, just wasn't that funny to me. I heard Rhythm of War wasn't that good, but I've read the first three. So I heard that Rhythm of War from people that I respect a lot were like, not that great. Yeah, let's do meditation. Someone's asking. Okay, let's do meditation. So I'm going to teach you guys something a little bit different today, okay? So this is a slightly more advanced meditation. So we're going to do a Chidakash Dharana today, okay? So a little bit of backstory. So Chidakash is the space of the mind. So if you guys want to understand what the Chidakash is, close your eyes. And then what you'll see is like a black screen across your vision, which is basically kind of like your eyelids, right? But it's kind of weird because it's not going to be just your eyelids. The Chidakash is like taller and wider than what your eyelids are, if that kind of makes sense. So close your eyes for a moment and just observe the Chidakash in front of you. So it'll be like a screen of black. So sit up straight. Spine should be straight. Take a deep breath in and out. Notice your breathing. And observe the Chidakash, the screen of black, or the projector, or I guess the projector screen across your mind. You may see colors. They may move in and out, but just notice that there is a screen. And now I want you to imagine the Chidakash is a wall in front of you, a black wall. And that you're inside a room and you're looking at this black wall in front of you. And once again, just notice that you can see the Chidakash, which means you must be behind it. Right? Since it is an object for what you witness, you actually have to be behind it and separate from it. So imagine yourself in a room with a black wall in front of you. So if y'all have done Trataka or fixed point gazing, candle gazing, yantra gazing, all of the after images from those practices will appear in the Chidakash. So just look at the screen of black in front of you. And now I want you to sort of shift your attention to your right side and kind of notice that there's also like a plane of blackness on your right. That you're in the center of a room and the front wall is black with maybe some colors across it. And then to your right, there's also a wall that is black. And now turn your attention to the left side and notice the plane of black on your left. Imagine yourself in a room with now 3 black walls, and you're in the center of the room. And if you're having trouble, you can imagine things as I mentioned. If you're having trouble seeing the right or left walls, you can continue to focus on the front wall. And notice that it kind of wraps around to the right and to the left. And now I want you to notice the ceiling, which is also black. There's a black ceiling above you, that you're in a room with a black wall in front, black walls to the right and to the left, and a ceiling on top, which is also black. And let yourself be in the center of this thing known as your mind. And now imagine the rear wall. This can almost be felt more than seen. That there's a rear wall that is also black. But somewhere in the center of the wall, towards the bottom, there's an opening, a hole. And that hole leads to a tunnel that goes downward. You may be able to feel the opening in the back of your mind. Now just continue to notice what you can. Extend your attention to whichever part of the practice works for you. On a basic level, most people should be able to see the Chittakash in front of them. Depending on your level of practice, you may be able to start to wrap around to the sides. To fully see the black walls on your left, right, or ceiling can be more difficult. And to feel the black wall at the back is even more so. To see the hole is even more so, and the tunnel is arguably the most difficult of all. If you're struggling at actually experiencing these things, you can imagine yourself in such a room. And if you are able to find the hole in the tunnel, you can attempt to go inside. Drive your attention into the tunnel at the back of your mind. And follow it down. And notice any sensations or experiences that happen as you travel into the tunnel. And now we'll go ahead and come back. So notice now the feel of your body, the air in the room, whatever scent may be in the room, noises from the outside world. And notice once again that your presence exists within the center of this blackness, and that the world is swirling around, existing outside of you. And that most of the day you engage with the world, you are actually in the world and not in yourself. But for these few moments, you have retreated within yourself. And now as the practice comes to the end, notice the bridge between you and the external world. Notice all the activity on the other side of the bridge. The sounds, the sensations, bodily sensations, the smells, the tastes. The world that we are returning to. Now put your hands together in front of you in Namaste position. Take a deep breath in and out. And now rub together your palms. Feel the heat and the friction. Cup them over your eyes. Take a deep breath in. As you exhale, slowly open your eyes. And as the breath completes, let your hands come down. What is the meditation called? I guess the Chidakash room, for lack of a better term. The tunnel felt like a threat. You may be doing it right. The tunnel felt cramped. Yes. Felt like falling from the tunnel. Yes, y'all are doing it right. So don't go too far down the tunnel if you're not ready. Okay? Yeah, so remember that for the more advanced meditation techniques, not everyone will feel the things, which is okay. That's why I tried to give you guys a couple of different options, right? So you can imagine being in the room as opposed to experiencing it. You can definitely experience the Chidakash, or you should be able to. Then you can start to experience the sides. And if you work on the sides, eventually you'll be able to feel the full wall. If you work on the walls, eventually you'll be able to feel the back wall. And if you focus your attention on the back wall, you'll see that hole in the tunnel in the back. Ah. That was the tunnel supposed to end? We don't talk about what the tunnel is supposed to do, chat. That's not the goal. You tell me. Right? Okay. So are we going to raid Arteezy? I see Arteezy is streaming. Or are we going to raid a small streamer? I think we talked about raiding a small streamer, right? Okay, who's the small streamer? Doesn't have to gargoyle? Doesn't have to be a Dota streamer. Sugmo balls? Okay, Gargoyle has 2 followers but isn't. Norf Dog? Okay, we're gonna raid North Dog, okay?
Hey, are you still streaming?
Yeah, I'm wrapping up. What's up?
We just got this mat. You want to get some feedback?
Sure. What are we looking at?
I can't tell if I like this or not.
What do y'all, is this a yoga mat?
Yeah.
What do y'all think, chat? Go hold it sideways.
Hold it sideways? Okay.
Yeah, so they can see. Is this a good yoga mat? Yay or nay?
I hope somebody else is paying attention because I can't see.
Yeah, I can see.
And
I think it looks good.
The back is black on black and it's like a really subtle logo. Can you see it?
Yeah, I think it looks good.
This way?
How's the quality of the yoga mat, though? Is it good?
It's nice and thick. Stop.
Okay, yeah, we'll try it out.
It's comfortable. You can lay on it for hours. What else do you want me to say? Haha, so funny, so funny.
Okay, North Dog or Artur? Can we have a poll while we're waiting?
All right, thanks for the opinions.
You guys like or no like?
Yeah, good one. Okay. If you don't like it, tell us, please. I don't want to put this much time and energy into something you guys won't like. Here.
Okay.
Thanks.
Quickly chat. Raid who? Yeah, let's see. Oh man, it's 50-50 chat. Let's see what... Uh-oh. Oh my god, this is so close. You guys are making things so... Okay, North Dog is winning. Nope, Artur is winning. Chat, dude, this is hard. Okay, we're gonna have to wait till the end of voting. Well, it looks like we're gonna have to wait till the end. Because it's too hard to tell. North Dog is a VTuber. No, dude, don't balance it, chat. Don't balance it. No. No, 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 no. No, why do you guys troll me so much after everything that I do? Okay, North Dog wins by like four votes. Okay? We'll raid Artur next time. Dude, Artur, I'm sure Artur will be fine with viewers. Hold on a second. Hold on. He's not answering on Discord. Okay, we'll raid North Dog. We'll raid Artur next time. Small streamer chat, come on. Go send North Dog some love. We'll see y'all on Wednesday. And take care, chat. Bye.